6, we're back again. Kristi and Katie, your crime time friends. Stories, justice, laughs collide. True Crime Squad, come join the ride. Grab the clues, let's take a stand. For victims' voices, hand in hand. True Crime Squad, it's time to shine. Season 6, your turn, your time. True Crime Squad, where justice meets hilarity.
Hey everybody, welcome to the True Crime Squad. I'm Kristi Brower, here with my sister, co-host, and partner in crime, Katie Weaver. Hey Katie.
Hello.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going good. Still recovering, I think, from a wild weekend, but yes, doing fine.
Well, good. Glad to hear it. I know, as usual, I look like there's a cat growing out of my head, but that's because True Crime Cat Sandy has taken up residence on the back of my chair, which honestly is better than the constant circling of me, so I'll take it. But she's here to render her judgment upon everything we have to say today.
Mm-hmm. She'll let us know.
She will let us know. Yeah, sometimes she does not approve.
Indeed.
Happy Mother's Day. If you celebrate, to all of you in the U.S. from yesterday, we had a nice little Mother's Day picnic yesterday at Katie's house, and everybody got to meet my granddaughter Lily. And that was really fun. I was really happy for everybody to get a chance to meet her and hold her. She's so cute.
Yeah. Oh, it was so fun to get to finally meet her.
Yeah.
She's got the sweetest little tiny fingers and toes. She's just so teeny.
She is. Although she has gained almost a pound from her birth weight, and she has grown 3 inches. So she's growing like crazy. So that is
like
excellent.
A weed. Yes. But yes, she's absolutely precious. Yeah.
She is. She is doing really well. Well, we have a lot to talk about today. So I think we ought to get right at it. Katie, I know that you have a crime news update for us.
Indeed. You know, we've been wondering what the judge was going to think of that filing from Lori Vallow Daybell. And one thing that was pointed out by others is that Lori filed that motion to for a new trial or to dismiss or whatever she wanted without even asking for a hearing.
Yeah.
Like, per normal, she did a bad job because her lawyer is a total dumbass. I don't know if you've met her, but she is stupid. And
not good, no.
Not great.
Turns out she's a quadruple murderer, her attorney. So doesn't bode well. Convicted.
She's been too busy being murdery to worry about law school, you know?
Yeah.
It's just how it's been. Well, I've been wondering because she, of course, filed that very inflammatory, ridiculous filing about all the reasons why that she was treated unfairly, prosecutorial misconduct, judicial impartiality,
juror misconduct,
all kinds of things that were so unfair. She's still mad that she didn't get to use her victim Tylee's statement. You know.
Gross. And that she didn't get to call Nate Eaton.
Yes.
As a witness of what? No one knows.
Also angry that she didn't get to call Brandon Boudreaux, even though Brandon Boudreaux wasn't even on her witness list. She had a lot of beef. So I've been wondering. Because the state responded pretty scathingly and basically like, okay, no, you know, bye girl, bye. So I've been kind of waiting. Yeah, I've been waiting to see what Judge Boreski was going to say because he's been incredibly nice to her and patient and has done everything he could to safeguard the case, but also, you know, let her have her constitutional right to defend herself. So today, and I wonder if he's kind of been just sitting around with this all weekend, just kind of waiting to, you know, make this filing. But we now know that, actually, no, he filed this on the 9th. So we got it over with before the weekend because he was like, girl, I'm done. So here's the motion. This is a very quick filing. Motion denied. The court has received and reviewed defendant's motion to dismiss for abuse of discretion by Judge Boreski. That was filed clear back on April 25th. The motion again argues a violation of the defendant's speedy trial rights. The court stands on the existing record regarding this case as well as the record in yada yada yada. Regarding Rule 8 time exclusions, it is so ordered denying motion to dismiss. So actually, now that I'm reading this, I'm realizing this is not on that current filing. This was from way back when she wanted to dismiss because, she hasn't had a speedy trial because the defense has held
Oh,
up
yeah.
the trial. So scratch
That's
what I
right.
said. I glanced through this earlier and didn't read it well enough. So yeah, that's what he filed. So he's still waiting. Okay, I hear you, Judge. You're getting your P's and Q's together.
I gotta imagine he's gonna want to talk to that juror. I can't imagine that he's gonna just let what that juror said go without having a conversation with that juror and clarifying.
I would assume so.
All the other stuff is bullshit. The only thing that might have any grounds at all is that juror.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he would be smart. I would imagine just for appeals protection, he would want to have on the record a conversation with that juror, don't you think?
Indeed. Yeah. I would think so. But again, she didn't ask for that. She didn't ask for a hearing.
No, she didn't. But he may want to do it just in order to be able to make a clear ruling.
We might learn more about it because on Wednesday, the 14th, there is going to be a pretrial hearing for the Brandon Boudreaux trial coming.
What day is that again? Sorry, you cut out on
Wednesday
my
morning.
Wednesday morning.
Okay. Yep. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll bring it to this channel after it's done. But I would assume there'll be some discussion of that there. But anyway, yeah.
Interesting. Huh.
But yet again, all of her attempts to dismiss Brandon Boudreaux's case, as well as this, the case that just happened, the conviction that just happened for the murder of Charles Vallow, she's not going to get it dismissed because her constitutional rights have been violated when the defense is the reason that this has been slowed down. She's just not. There's just no grounds for it. It's so stupid.
And she can keep shooting her mouth off about that stuff, but it doesn't change anything. The fact is that the delays were because of her. So sorry about it.
Well, she doesn't like it because she says that they did that against her will. It just doesn't matter.
It's not like that. I mean, if your whole defense team quits and you have to get a new one,
that takes time.
If there's question of your competency and it has to be evaluated, that takes time. And, it is the court's job to make sure that you're competent and to make sure that you have a defense team or that you insist on not having a defense team. I mean, either way, that's all got to be done.
And she was clearly displaying something to that defense team that made them cautious, that made them want that evaluation, right?
Yeah. Well, was it possibly that she was going to argue that she is, in fact, a translated being? Because she basically did that in this trial. That would be enough of a reason for me to go, maybe we need to have a doctor look at you. Just make sure everything's okay here.
Or maybe she let them know, like she did poor old Keith over at Dateline, that she had no concerns here because she knows damn well Jesus is going to fix this anyway. So
that is possible.
No worries. Jesus will set me free. I will not be in prison because I've had visions of me and Chad and we're not in prison. Therefore, not in prison. Jesus, there you go.
Yeah, like, what? Okay, that's not a defense. And it could have just been that they're like, look, she is so impossible because she's so delusional that we can't even mount a defense.
But it was the delusions that they saw that made them want, I'm sure, to have her competency evaluated.
Yeah, definitely.
So there you go. We'll keep an eye out. So I would imagine there'll be more filings this week. No wonder I had a hard time finding the rest of that filing. That was it. That was it. But that's okay. Judge, we see you. We know. I'm going to kick it over to you for our main case.
Yes. Trigger warning for this segment. I am going to be discussing the federal case going forward for the founder and the lead salesperson for a culty organization called One Taste. So it does have some sexual assault, sexual abuse kinds of claims. within it. I just wanted to let you know that beforehand. If this is something you don't want to watch, please don't. I don't expect it. But this is a hell of a story, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Here we have two, well, as far as I can tell, pretty reprehensible human beings. This is Rachel Cherwitz and Nicole Daedone. And they are currently on trial. There is a federal court case going on against them right now. This started last week, where they are being charged with, let me just tell you, I'm going to read you some of the stuff from the original grand jury indictment. So One Taste Inc. was a privately held California corporation, with a principal place of business in San Francisco, California. They have a bunch of affiliates, one in New York City, a couple in New York City. They have investment holdings. They have all kinds of stuff. Texas Limbic Network, something called The Next Right Thing. They have offices in Brooklyn, New York, Manhattan, New York, San Francisco, California, Los Angeles, California, Denver, Colorado, Boulder, Colorado, Austin, Texas, and London, the United Kingdom.
Wow.
One Taste promoted itself, this is right from the indictment, as a sexuality-focused wellness education company, which offered hands-on classes, very, very hands-on classes, on orgasmic...
Hands-on-iest, really.
Yes, on orgasmic meditation, later to be referred to as OM, a partnered practice typically involving the methodically stroking of a woman's genitals for a period of 15 minutes. One Taste generated revenue by providing courses, coaching, and events related to OM and other wellness practices in exchange for a fee. Now, this is pretty wild. Look, if you want to do orgasmic meditation, you go right ahead. It's your body. It's your choice. If you're an adult, please feel free. I am in no way criticizing that particular practice because I think people have the right to do what they want with their own bodies.
Well, sure, and that's not, there's lots of other practices that are meditative, that that explore sexuality and sex, such as tantric stuff, and there's a lot of things. Yeah,
totally. The One Taste is actually a Buddhist reference from Buddhist philosophy about how the ocean has one taste, it's salt, and it is about mindfulness meditation. This is taking mindfulness meditation to a whole other level. If you've ever done transcendental meditation or other mindfulness meditations, you focus on one thing. A lot of times it's a mantra. Mm-hmm. In their case, it is literally a 15-minute orgasm.
Okay.
So, I mean, to each their own. So, individuals who associated themselves with One Taste, either as employees or as frequent participants in One Taste courses and events, identified themselves as members of One Taste. So, One Taste went from, hey, they're teaching these orgasmic meditations, to very quickly expanding to all of these membership levels. So it really went pyramid scheme very quickly, where you could pay $1,500 for a course, or you could pay $36,000 worth of a course, or you could just pay $60,000 a year and just be a member, and then you could attend anything you wanted. Including, they have a couple of like communes where some people would live. Those could be members that were paying members. They could also be staff, because you know how these things always go. They go from teaching the general public and doing these groups to training people to be coaches. And then those coaches are meant to sell the product that they have packaged up.
Yeah.
And so you've got these levels. And so the coaches, they're hired, they're employees in a way, and they're like living in the communes. as they are offering these services. What they are charged with is a forced labor scheme conspiracy. So in or about 2006 to May 2018, Daedone and Cherwitz, together with others, obtained the labor and services of a group of One Taste members by subjecting them to economic, sexual, emotional, and psychological abuse, surveillance, indoctrination, and intimidation. Because, you can't have a cult without all that.
You got to have it all.
Right.
They checked the boxes. They did their due
They
diligence.
have done a real good job of checking the boxes of a very abusive cult.
Mm-hmm.
So the defendants, Daedone and Cherwitz, together with their co-conspirators, deployed a number of abusive and manipulative tactics in order to obtain the labor and services of these members. So some of them were employees, some of them were people who paid to be there, but they were all kind of doing the same work.
Mm-hmm.
They intentionally recruited individuals who had suffered prior trauma to participate in One Taste.
Oh, of course they did. Yep.
And advertised that One Taste courses and teachings could heal past sexual trauma and dysfunction. Huge red flag, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a sexually based meditation, but who they're really bringing in are people who have experienced sexual violence, and they have claims to heal them. Are these people mental health professionals or medical professionals? No, they are not.
Not at all.
So,
no.
Big red flag there. They also induced One Taste members, including One Taste employees, to incur debt, and at times facilitated the One Taste members in opening lines of credit to finance expensive One Taste courses that the defendants knew the One Taste members could not afford. So think about this. Their employees were pressured to take their courses and pay for them. So these employees are making nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And there was
really
a lot of pressure.
Paying for the pleasure of working for them, really, at the end of the day.
Very much so. Very much so. They also subjected the One Taste members to constant surveillance in communal homes that One Taste oversaw. Daedone, Cherwitz, and their co-conspirators further directed that the One Taste members sleep in shared assigned beds and eat, work, and travel in groups as a means of rendering the One Taste members dependent on One Taste for their shelter and basic necessities, and limiting the One Taste members' independence and control. They were to be available at all times. And if they were going to be unavailable for any amount of time, they had to send a text to a group chat that said, out for 15 minutes, shower, or out for 15 minutes, orgasmic meditation circle, where they were doing one of the circles. So they had to let them know at all times. There was not like, these were not work hours. They were available all the time. And if they weren't, then they definitely had to let them know or they would be in big trouble. Right, Tammy? So many red flags already. And you haven't even heard anywhere near the worst of it yet. They demanded absolute commitment to Daedone, Nicole Daedone, including by exalting Daedone's teachings and ideology and not tolerating dissent. They were not allowed to speak against anything. They waited on this woman hand and foot. They had to believe everything she said. She, I know you'll be shocked, but compared herself to God on a regular basis.
Well, of course she did.
And she had cobbled together so many of these that we've seen lately. Cobbled together lots of metaphysical and Eastern spirituality stuff into her own weird little dogma. Sometimes they were like meditating, other times they were like playing singing bowls and doing sage, or they were talking about Zen Buddhism or whatever. Like it was just whatever she'd read in books that she just smashed up together. How many cult leaders have we seen do that particular stuff? Many. They also collected sensitive information about the One Taste members, including but not limited to information pertaining to the One Taste members' prior trauma, sexual histories and relationships, as a means of influencing and controlling the One Taste members. If they were unhappy with them for any reason, they would shake them down with their personal information, trigger them, and attack them with things that they knew about them personally.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a great way to
Isolated the One
control
Taste,
people.
right? Isolated the One Taste members by encouraging them to limit contact with people outside of the One Taste community. Imagine. And by breaking up established romantic relationships among the One Taste members as a means of rendering the One Taste members emotionally, socially, and psychologically dependent on One Taste. Were they
Yeah.
being, indoctrinated? Why, yes, they were.
Yeah.
Upon securing the allegations of the One Taste members through, among others, the above tactics, the defendants, Daedone and Cherwitz, together with their co-conspirators, then engaged in abusive employment practices. For example, Daedone, Cherwitz, and their co-conspirators promised to pay the One Taste members wages and commissions for work performed on behalf of One Taste, and subsequently declined to pay the One Taste members the amounts owed, or changed the amount One Taste members' employment statuses or locations without advance notice as a means of rendering the One Taste members dependent on One Taste for their livelihood and financial well-being. They just changed their mind, like, yeah, well, we changed our mind. We're not going to pay you for that. Or we've changed your title, and that's changed your salary structure. There was a lot of that going on. So they literally had nothing. And this is one of those situations where there were followers that just said, here you go, One Taste. Please take everything I own. Please take all my money.
Yep.
It was like that. Definitely one of those kinds of situations.
And I for sure will live here and work for you for free 24/7.
Yes, because they were indoctrinated. As part of their employment at One Taste, some of the One Taste members engaged in sexual activity at the direction of the defendants, Daedone and Cherwitz. For example, Daedone and Cherwitz, together with their co-conspirators, recruited and groomed One Taste members to engage in sexual acts with One Taste's current and prospective investors, clients, employees, and beneficiaries for the financial benefit of One Taste and, in turn, the defendants.
Oh, so they had to have a demonstration. Got it.
They would do these demonstrations. Here's the thing. This was mostly focused on women and how women having more orgasms made them healthier mentally, emotionally, spiritually, blah, 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 right? But the people that attended most of their seminars were, I know you'll be shocked by this, men. So say they have 10 men and 2 women come to their seminar. Well, if they're going to do the old Om practice with the women, they've got to round up 8 more women. So if you were an employee or a member that lived there, you would just have to be subjected to
being a part of the circle.
Practice.
Okay.
And these things were done in a group. So if your turn was up and the guy that was being trained was working on you, then everybody else was there in the circle witnessing it. These were done publicly.
Holy shit.
There's video of these experiences. And they didn't really have a choice because they were employees and that's what they were told that they had to do. And if they were
a lot of them, I'm guessing, were already in super deep, financially, emotionally.
Totally.
They were.
If they'd said no and been kicked out, where would they go? They've alienated their family. They don't have any money. They don't even have a home. They don't have a job. They have nothing. They were also pressured into doing things that they were not comfortable doing. And
like this?
Nicole, like this. Even worse, though. Nicole would encourage them that if they felt uncomfortable or repulsed by something, that meant they should do it more.
Oh, yes. The old essential oil, if you don't like the smell of an essential oil, you should use it more because your body needs it. Routine. Got it. Okay. Yes.
Right. It is totally sex trafficking, Natasha, but the way that it's charged, I think this was the way that they could get, for sure, better evidence against these guys, to call it forced labor.
But absolutely it's trafficking, without a doubt.
Oh, it is, 100%. Daedone and Cherwitz also instructed the One Taste members to engage in sexual acts they found uncomfortable or repulsive as a requirement to obtain freedom and enlightenment and demonstrate their commitment to One Taste and Nicole Daedone.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Resistance to the directives of the defendants was not tolerated. They didn't get to say no.
Mm-hmm.
Daedone and Cherwitz subjected the One Taste members to public shame, humiliation, and workplace retaliation if they failed to adhere to the defendants' directives.
Mm-hmm.
Moreover, the defendants and their co-conspirators employed harassment and coercion to intimidate and attack One Taste members perceived to be enemies and critics of Daedone and/or One Taste.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you didn't get along with a coworker, then you were told you had to work it out by having sex with it.
Of course. Yeah. Well, that gives Hug It Out a whole new.
It is a lot like that. They called it something like heightened emotions mean fight or fuck, and we don't do fighting, so fuck it out, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
It's unreal. So
Well, talk
the
about a
forced
way
labor-
to, as a predator, to be able to abuse more people.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Nicole Daedone, by her own report, I don't know how much of this is true because Nicole is the blonde. Yes. She's, as the knitting cult lady would say, she's the skinny blonde woman of the cults, but
Yes.
she's the leader.
Mm-hmm.
She reports publicly, well, there are videos of her saying these things, that her father was a pedophile who used her as bait to bring little girls into their life to molest them.
Dear God,
He-
Nicole.
He
Oh.
died in prison after being convicted of 52 counts of child molestation.
And this is true? This isn't just something she says?
As far as we know, it is true.
Is this a near-death
she-
experience, or?
As far as we know, it's true. It's hard to know because she's full of shit. But
Mhm.
what she says is that she never saw him as a predator. That she saw him as a four-dimensional being who was just so expanded and the rest of the world did not understand him.
Oh.
There is a great deal of victim blaming that goes on in her teachings.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing yourself as someone who's been raped just makes you a victim.
Ugh.
And that women need to just embrace that power and recognize that all men are predators and that we should
Mhm.
just acknowledge that about them and, basically just let them do whatever they want. And if you don't, that's your fault. That made you a victim. I'm like, are you like a Mormon prophet right now? Because that sounds familiar.
Mhm.
But yes, there is a whole lot. And there is a documentary. Yes, we'll talk about that. There is a documentary that came out in 2012 or 2022, I mean. It's on Netflix, and it is called One Taste. But there's video of her in that documentary saying that about her father.
Wow.
So I think Nicole is also a predator and has somehow made it okay in her mind by doing this hideous shit to people.
Yeah.
So this is considered a forced labor conspiracy that they worked together to make this happen. And the way that they're defining that, the feds are, in or about and between 2006 and May 2018, both dates being approximate and inclusive within the Eastern District of New York and elsewhere, the defendants, Nicole Daedone and Rachel Cherwitz, together with others, did knowingly and intentionally conspire to provide and obtain the labor and services of one or more persons by means of and by a combination of force, threats of force, physical restraint, and threats of physical restraint to a person. They started getting into BDSM, and the employees had to beat each other.
Oh,
It got way worse. Yeah.
my God.
Serious harm and threats of serious harm to a person, the abuse and threatened abuse of law and legal processes, and one or more schemes, plans, and patterns intended to cause a person to believe that if he or she did not perform such labor and services, a person would suffer serious harm and physical restraint. There are people who report that those things did, in fact, happen. They also benefit financially and by receiving anything of value from participation in a venture which has engaged in the providing or obtaining of labor or services by any such means, knowing and in reckless disregard of the fact that said venture has engaged in the providing and obtaining of labor and services by any such means. So that is the definition of their conspiracy. They want them to have to forfeit any means and any resources, and it's millions and millions of dollars, by the way,
Sure.
that they earned within their criminal enterprise. See, this is almost a RICO charge. It's not quite RICO, but it's pretty close to an organized crime type allegation. And I think this is similar to the Sean Combs case, in that the feds are using the things that they can prove the easiest that will put them in prison the longest. And that's why the RICO charge comes in for Sean Combs, because sexual assault allegations are hard to prove. But organized crime is not as hard to prove. And that's what we're seeing here too with this forced labor conspiracy. It's stunning. It's disgusting. Please go. I didn't get into all of the stuff because there's stuff I'm not going to say on the internet, and YouTube doesn't like us to. The abuse of the employees and the members is horrific, and people are absolutely destroyed from their experiences with these two idiots.
Do we have any idea how many victims they had from their comments?
I'm not sure.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's many, 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 many. Let's see. I was going to say, I had one. So opening statement started on May 6th. Nicole Daedone says she is going to testify in her own trial.
I'm
Let's see.
just sure she is.
Here are some of the statements from the opening statements. U.S. Attorney Breon Peace said at the time that they were arrested, under the guise of empowerment and wellness, the defendants are alleged to have sought complete control over their employees' lives, including by driving them into debt and directing them to perform sexual acts while also withholding wages. The women were subjected to economic, sexual, emotional, and psychological abuse, surveillance, indoctrination, and intimidation. What did the defendants get out of this? Power, prestige, and money. Also sex, because I think Nicole Daedone has a real problem as far as like sexual addiction is concerned. She has some major issues. A longtime practitioner of Buddhism, that's supposedly what Daedone says, but she's pulled from all kinds of practices. She says she came up with a scientific-based practice with proven benefits in which a woman is sexually stimulated for 15 minutes. She calls it yoga with a twist, except for the part where there's not any yoga. Okay. Maybe they do yoga too, but
there could be a twist in there, though. I don't know.
There could be. The orgasmic meditation, there is no yoga in that. Let's see. So the practice has had a celebrity following, including, I know you'll find neither of these surprising, Gwyneth Paltrow and Khloe Kardashian are two big followers of this deal. Which again, if you're into the thing, whatever. But Gwyneth Paltrow, really, the Goop lady. What's the book that she wrote? Slow Sex. She wrote a book called Slow Sex. It incorporates quite a bit of what's in these teachings. But this started out with the orgasmic meditation, and then it spiraled into crazy abusive cult shit.
Well, Gwyneth Paltrow, I mean, the yoni eggs, the yoni steaming,
Right. That
Lots of
is
other stuff.
really
Yeah.
yeah, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the defense is saying that no one was forced or coerced into these situations. But as we know, this was, in essence, it was domestic violence. They were in a
Right.
situation where they were relying on these people for everything. They weren't
Mm-hmm.
being paid for their work.
Mm-hmm.
They were being manipulated and indoctrinated. And maybe they went in knowingly at the beginning, but they
Mm-hmm.
didn't know it was going to turn into this shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, Stars Are Good is like, what am I about to hear? I just got here. Oh, yeah, well.
Right. Caitlin just got here too. I'm sure everyone that just showed up is like, wait a second. Did you just say orgasmic meditation? Yes,
I
we
did.
did.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes. That is, we are talking about One Taste and the leaders of One Taste who are currently on trial,
Mm-hmm.
federally indicted for forced labor conspiracy. That's Nicole Daedone and Rachel Cherwitz. This is a little bit of it's kind of a mini ditty situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah.
They're just trying to say that this has all just been blown up by the media, except that there are countless interviews with
Yeah.
actual members and employees who
Mm-hmm.
are saying, "Oh no, all this shit did in fact happen."
Yeah.
Um, they're saying this case should have never been brought. One Taste was always about empowerment, consent, and healing. It might have started out that way, but it did not end up that way at
The
all.
fact that they were seeking out victims of sexual abuse
Right.
and then sexually abusing them, holy
Yeah.
crap.
Yeah. Right, Kaylin. And there are parts of it that probably were pretty fun.
Yeah.
If you're just into that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it is the way that they ran the organization behind the scenes that is incredibly abusive.
Mm-hmm.
One young woman experienced a gang rape who was an employee.
Yeah.
And her experience was so hideous in the way that they blamed her and victim blamed her. It absolutely broke her. And her sister actually spoke for her in the documentary because there's no way she could speak for it
Mm-hmm.
herself. But her sister was like, they need to hear your story. This is so important. So
Mm-hmm.
she represents her in the documentary to talk about her experiences because I'm absolutely grateful that that young woman is still alive, frankly.
Yeah.
After what
Yes.
she went through, I was expecting to hear that she had taken her own life when her sister was representing her.
Right.
It turns out, no, that she's just trying to live her life and stay separate from this. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, people needed to hear the
Mm-hmm.
kinds of hideous treatment that she received from these individuals right here on the screen and this organization.
It just seems so typical of the way you see many people. I mean, and I see some of our listeners saying this, and we all ask, how did people fall for this? How did people get involved in this? How did victims that have already been through this fall into these cult
Yeah,
practices as well?
right. They think they're
Through,
getting into something that is wellness and
yes,
spirituality
that's
and,
that's good for
trying to
them.
heal issues
Mm-hmm.
around their own sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, there's always a dark underbelly for this stuff.
Always,
Yes,
but
Teresa, don't watch the documentary if any of this makes you uncomfortable.
mm-hmm.
Trust me, because there's some pretty graphic stuff in the documentary.
Oh wow.
I'm glad they did it and I'm glad they showed it because that is the kind of information that needs to be seen by this jury.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing that needs to be seen by the public so people
Mm-hmm.
know who these women really are.
Yep.
But this was supposed to be empowering for women and it became extremely
Yeah.
abusive for women and for men. There
Yeah.
are male victims as well
Mm-hmm.
because they were doing the same thing for men, but they didn't publicize it because
Mm-hmm.
they knew that they would just be inundated by men.
Mm-hmm.
But that seems predatory to me as well, that it
Yeah,
was so
definitely.
heavily focused on women
Mm-hmm.
and women that had histories of sexual trauma, which,
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find women that don't have sexual trauma here in the United States, to be perfectly
Right.
honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So keep an eye on this trial. It's a federal trial, so there's no video of it, but there's really good reporting of it going on right now. It started on May 6th. And then if you are interested and feel like you can stomach it, it is called One Taste. There's another part of the title I can't remember, but if you just search One Taste on Netflix, at least here in the US, you can find it. And it's an hour and a half long, and it's a hell of a story.
Wow.
But what I hope is for major justice for these victims. These women both face 20 years in prison for what they've done. And I hope they get every damn second of that. Yeah. All righty. Well, Katie, I know you are going to wrap us up with a little bit of DNA for the win.
Indeed. Okay. I want to introduce you to this beautiful girl right here. This is Jeanette Ralston. Jeanette Ralston was 24 years old. She went missing in 1977. She had left a bar in San Jose, California, a little after midnight with an unidentified male. Didn't make it to where she was supposed to be and was found the next day in her VW Beetle. In the back seat, she had been sexually assaulted and strangled with a men's dress shirt and was deceased. She had a 6-year-old son, and the police had nothing. They had a fingerprint, a latent print on a package of cigarettes, Eve brand cigarettes, and that's about all they had. They investigated this case and investigated this case and investigated this case. It came up over and over and over again, and they just couldn't put a pin in it. Until a few years ago, they went, there's been a lot of technological advances in fingerprinting and in organizing fingerprints here in the last 40, 50 years. So we had to run these prints again. They called it a Hail Mary. We're going to run this print again and just see. And sure as hell, they got a hit.
Wow.
And they had DNA from the crime scene and from the shirt, and also she was assaulted. So they had DNA from multiple places under her fingernails, actually. So they went ahead and from the fingerprint that matched, they asked for a warrant for a 69-year-old man in Ohio. And they got that warrant returned. They were able to do a DNA test on Willie Eugene Sims. Again, an old guy who lives in Ohio, this guy right here. And sure enough, the DNA matched to the dress shirt as well as to the DNA found under her fingernails.
Wow.
So Ralston has been arrested, and he will be being transferred to California shortly to stand trial. And they feel like they have a strong enough case. One of the crazy things going on is that all of the witnesses are still alive.
Wow. That's amazing.
It was one of their big worries. Would anybody who saw her at all, is there any chance they're even still out here? Yes, they are.
That is amazing. So often they're all dead, including the suspect. Was he in the system now for other things?
He was. He was in the system because a year after this, he actually did a brief stint in prison for assault in 78. But they didn't have DNA from him at that time. So this is all just kind of sat until they went, wait a second, we have a fingerprint. Maybe it's that simple.
Right.
And it actually was. Yeah. How old was he at the time? So he's 69 now. And this was, 48 years ago? About 20?
Wow.
Yep. Witnesses saw her leave the bar with him. Yeah, but nobody knew who he was. But yeah, witnesses saw her at the bar with him and leave the bar with him. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, good.
Mm-hmm. So yet again, you have to wonder, what kind of guy is this?
Right. If he did this once.
Right. How often are we hearing these cases where these men have lived what seems to be a pretty quiet life up to this point? Now, he did do a short amount of time in prison, afterwards for an assault, but after that, it seems like he's been a pretty quiet dude.
Mm,
So I always wonder, like, what does his family think right now?
right.
Does he have a family? Right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
was he, has he been a piece of shit as a human being?
Mm-hmm.
What would people who worked with him say? What would his neighbors say? Are
Right.
people
Are they
shocked or
surprised
are
or
they
not?
like, yeah, surprises me not at all? This is always the question I have in these cases. Was this a shock for him to be arrested and charged for this, or did people around him go, yeah, that tracks? Right, is he married? Does he have kids? Like, what do we know? We don't know anything
Right.
actually, but I always wonder these things. Like, what kind of human was this? Because he
Right.
was a murderer and a rapist, as far as the evidence is pointing to. Of course, he hasn't been convicted of anything yet, but those are the
Yeah,
charges.
exactly. Wow.
Yeah,
Well, listen up, criminals. Your time will come.
yeah,
We've learned that in the last few years that, just because you think you got away with something doesn't mean you did.
no. So now her 6-year-old son, who's now an adult man in his 50s, of course, is going to get to see justice for his mother.
Yeah, that is wild.
Yep.
That's really cool, though. At least finally, there's some
Hmm.
justice.
Yeah. Yep. So that's what
Yeah.
I've got.
Interesting. Some of you are asking about the Dateline regarding Brian Koberger. Oh, yes, we're well aware of it. We will be covering it a little bit later in the week.
Hmm.
Some interesting things. And as always, Dateline does a really good job of laying out the timeline
Hmm.
of what we know. And there were definitely some things that I didn't know or maybe had forgotten or hadn't
Hmm.
put in the right order that they talked about that we will discuss because it's really good.
Hmm.
Definitely gives some perspective that I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
I am Are you not dying to know what he talked to his father about 3 times at 6 o'clock in the morning on the day of the murders?
Yeah.
He had multiple long phone calls with his dad.
At 6 a.m.
What
Or
the hell
starting at
was
6
going
a.m.
on? Yeah,
Now, of
what
course,
was
that would
he
be 8
saying?
a.m. on the East Coast, but for Brian, it was
Right,
6.
but for Brian, it was really early in the morning,
Hmm.
because he had not been to bed yet, as we know.
Right. Or, well, no, I
Uh,
guess that would be 9 a.m. on the East Coast because they are
yeah.
probably Pacific time.
Oh, yeah, they are Pacific, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe dad was involved. No, I don't think that dad was involved. Dad definitely knew that something was up with him. That's
Hmm.
why he flew out here and drove back home with him when school went on a break. I don't think his father was involved,
Hmm.
but
But
what did
remember that
he
he was in trouble with the school at the time as well.
he was,
Things were
yeah.
going very poorly with his
Yeah.
time at Washington State
Yeah.
or the
But he
University
called
of
his dad
Washington.
3
Anyway.
times for half an hour to an hour each call
Hmm.
that morning. That's got to be, and the dad's got to be like,
Yeah.
the hell's going on with him?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So very interesting. There's a lot more to it. We will definitely be talking about it later in the week. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's really good. It's I watched it on Peacock. That's where I get
Hmm.
Dateline. But check it out because yeah, it's good. I just appreciate them
Yeah.
so much for their ability to put things together in perspective and in time.
Hmm.
That is so helpful. They even have their own recreation of the house, which is also really helpful. And
Hmm.
it's pretty clear now that they believe that Maddie Mogan was the original uh,
Target.
target,
Hmm.
but there were extra people in that house.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the roommate who wasn't home. She
Yeah.
was at her parents' house and wasn't supposed to be at her parents' house, but her
Yeah.
parents' flight was late. And so she
Yeah.
stayed an extra night at her mom and dad's to take care of their dogs, or she would have been in the house too. It's
Yeah.
just, yikes. Something else. Yes,
a
his
lot.
sister did suspect him after it
Mhm.
had occurred for sure. But
Mhm.
I don't know. There's just a lot. It's really good. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about some of the things that we didn't know, or just some of the timeline perspective stuff that they gave us that
Mhm.
I think is very interesting as we
Yeah.
march forward toward that actual trial coming up in August.
Mhm. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. All righty. Well, I think that's everything we have for you tonight. We will be back tomorrow. Yeah, he went straight to Maddie's room. He knew right where he was going.
Mhm.
We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Mountain for another episode. We'll be back Wednesday, as always, at 6 p.m. Mountain for case updates, and Thursday again at 3 p.m. Mountain for another episode. So
Mhm.
stay with us this week. Thank you, Tammy, for the super sticker. Always much appreciated. We do have some fun new things brewing for you. Maybe later in the week I'll have something to share. So excited about that. As always, like, subscribe, share, comment, leave a review wherever you can. It helps us to grow. We're trucking along to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
So, if you haven't subscribed, please do. That's been our wish for a long time. It's just to get to 10,000. That'd be real great.
Mhm.
So we're in the 9,000s now.
Yep.
So we're getting there.
We're moving along. Yeah.
We surely are. And you know what? We are the True Crime Squad. Thanks for being here.
Take care.
Season 6, we're back again. Kristi and Katie, your crime time friends. Stories, justice, laughs collide. True Crime Squad, come join the ride. Grab the clues, let's take a stand. For victims' voices, hand in hand. True Crime Squad, it's time to shine. Season 6, your turn, your time. True Crime Squad, where justice meets hilarity.